Imagine for a second trying to organize an election for nearly a billion people. It sounds kind of impossible, right? But that's exactly what India does. It is, without a doubt, the largest, most complex, and you could even say the most audacious democratic exercise on the entire planet. So today, we're going to look under the hood of this incredible democratic machine.
So let's rewind to 1947. India gains its independence, and right away it makes a decision that was nothing short of revolutionary. Think about it. At the time, the national literacy rate was less than 20%. But instead of restricting the vote to the educated or the wealthy, India's founders did the opposite. They put their faith in the wisdom of every single adult. And this quote right here, it gets to the heart of it. From day one, every single adult got the right to vote. This wasn't just some policy detail, it was a huge, profound statement of trust in the people. And that act of faith is what set the stage for the world's largest democracy.
Okay, so let's get into the nitty-gritty. How does this massive machine actually work? What are the gears and levers that turn the will of almost a billion voters into a real, functioning government?
Well, it's this really carefully choreographed process. It all starts with dividing the entire country up into voting areas, which we call constituencies. Then, you've got the huge task of preparing and updating the detailed voter lists, or electoral rolls. After that, the Election Commission announces the dates, and that's the starting gun. Candidates file their nominations, the parties hit the campaign trail, and then finally, we get to the main event, millions and millions of people casting their ballots. All of that leads to the final count that tells us who won.
So that's the process, right? The step-by-step sequence of events. But the outcome of that whole process is massively influenced by the system itself. The actual rules for how you count the votes. Is the way India does it the only way, or is it even the best way? This really brings us to a fundamental choice in how you design a democracy.
In India, for most elections, we use a system called First Past the Post, or FPTP for short. It's actually pretty simple. In each area, the candidate who gets more votes than anyone else wins. That's it. It's a winner-takes-all race. You don't need to get more than 50% of the vote. You just need to cross the finish line first.
Now this system, it comes with a really clear trade-off, which you can see laid out here. On one hand, FPTP is simple for everyone to understand, and it often leads to stable, single-party governments. Plus, it creates a direct link between a representative and their local constituents. But the downsides, they're pretty significant. A party can actually win a majority of the seats with less than half of the country's votes. Smaller parties get totally squeezed out, and sometimes it can even encourage politicians to appeal only to certain groups in their area.
Okay, to make this really concrete, check out this table. It basically reimagines the 2024 election results if India used a proportional representation system, where the number of seats you get matches your percentage of the vote. And wow, look at the difference. The NDA got 43.3% of the vote and won 293 seats. Under PR, they would have gotten 243. The India bloc, with 41.6% of the vote, would have gone from 234 seats to 225. But here's the biggest shocker. Others and independents, with 15% of the vote, would have jumped from just 16 seats to 75. That would completely change the entire makeup of parliament.
So, the system itself has a huge impact. That's clear. But no matter what system you use, even the world's greatest democratic machine has vulnerabilities. Bugs that can really threaten its integrity.
And one of the most concerning bugs has been growing, quietly but steadily for the last 2 decades.
This data from the Association for Democratic Reforms, it paints a really stark picture. Just look at the trend on this chart. Back in 2004, 128 members of parliament had criminal cases against them. Fast forward to 2014, that number is up to 187. In 2019, it's 233, and in this last election, it hit 241. I mean, the upward direction of these bars is just unmistakable and, frankly, pretty worrying.
To put that number into perspective, that means nearly half, 46% of all the MPs elected to this new Lok Sabha have criminal cases registered against them. That's a statistic that should really make all of us stop and think. And the challenges just keep evolving. Today, the democratic machine isn't just dealing with old-school problems. It's facing a whole new wave of modern threats. We're talking about stuff like AI-generated deepfakes that can literally make it look like anyone said anything. We're talking about the viral spread of misinformation on platforms like WhatsApp and Facebook. And of course, the huge challenge authorities face just trying to regulate this digital flood during an election.
So with all these complex systems, these trade-offs, and these big challenges, it's pretty easy to feel overwhelmed. But here's the thing.
The entire purpose of this vast, incredible, complicated machine, it all comes down to one single, powerful component: you.
So what are the big takeaways from all this? First, and most importantly, your vote isn't just a right. It's the fundamental gear that makes this entire machine turn. Second, it's super important to understand the system's trade-offs, that it's built for stability, but that can come at the cost of perfect representation. Third, you've got to be aware of the bugs, those very real threats to fairness. And finally, the most powerful tool you have against all of this complexity is actually pretty simple: just staying informed.
India's founders took a really radical bet on the wisdom of ordinary people. They built this intricate, powerful, and imperfect machine, with the core belief that you would be the one to steer it. So the only question that's left is, how will you use it?